So, to make this all happen, do you do it all? Do you involve committees? Do you involve presenters and agents in setting up or selecting juried showcases? What are sort of the nuts and bolts that have to be tightened before anybody shows up to the party?
Right. Well, there's the two sides of things, as I think you're intimating. There's a side of things that we don't have input from the larger community, but they are the fundamental pieces that make conference work. It's not something that people ever think about, a room block, filling a room block, or negotiating a contract with a venue, with a convention center, with a theater. All of those things have to happen, and we generally, that's, my role is to make sure that we attend to those details. If we don't fulfill on a room block, for instance, then we don't fulfill on our obligation to a hotel. Big things to worry about, but we don't generally have a lot of input from committees or advisory committees for those big building blocks. But then there are some really large building blocks that we have to have help. I mean, we simply cannot do it ourselves. Juried Showcase is a big example. So we have 9 experts, all artists, agents, presenters, all different genres, all different demographics. We try to have a great balance in this jury. We put together this group of 9 people who come together through webinar, actually, and help us. We don't make the decision at all. We facilitate the jury, and this jury comes together for a week and deliberates, watches sample after sample after sample of some good, some incredible, some great, some horrible art, or just all different versions of what one would think a genre is. All these different work samples are watched and vetted and narrowed down. We get sometimes 125, 150 applications that have to be narrowed down to about 16 slots. So absolutely have to have jury of our colleagues do that work. I have a group of trusted advisors, folks that have been on the advisory committee. We don't always have an advisory committee active, but we either have a formal advisory committee or we have an informal, I'm picking up the phone, oh, hi Eric, we're thinking about coming to Miami. Tell me about independent showcase space. Let's talk about what resources are available from the community. Our state arts agencies, of course, help us in every location. When we're really considering a location for PAE, we have first call really is to reach out to the state arts agency there, make connections, find out who can help us with professional development faculty, who can help us with hopefully sponsors, or who can help us with local resources that will help us get embedded in the fabric. We don't just want to parachute in and to a venue and not be a part of the fabric of the city that we're working with. We want to be good connectors for artists in the community, and we want to be hosted. We want to be good, in a way, hosts of all the artists that are coming to be with us. We want to be good hosts of all the presenters, and the way to do that is to be connected with the local community. So it takes state arts agencies, local arts agencies, and of course it takes the artists and the presenters and the supporting organizations that are in the area to help us understand how to best connect with the local resources. We have, we have a professional development committee. It's really essential. They really start to finish help us vet all the ideas, help us source all the ideas for professional development. They help us source all the ideas for the actual faculty members. We use all of the presenter networks from each state. So the network, the Florida presenters, for instance, this year helped us come up with some great resources for professional development sessions. So we just put together a committee of all of these supporting organizations and artists and managers and help us decide the professional development. Lots and lots and lots of input from the community. It takes a village, as we see. It takes a village to make art happen.
And speaking of a village, you have how many, in addition to you and Ethan, how many people from the South Arts office here doing things? And then in addition to that, approximately how many other external contractors, if you will,
right,
to look after the Juried Showcase room and food and all these other things?
So, good question. There are 9 employees at South Arts at the moment, and we have to shut down. We generally shut down the office and bring everyone here. Ethan works half of his time on PAE and the other half of his time on other programming, our dance touring initiative and our grants touring program. Nikki Estes works on our professional development, but she has an enormous amount of responsibility with the dance touring initiative and our grants program as well. So a piece of her work is to help with the professional development. Let's see. And then, of course, Ivan, our communications and development director, works a good bit of his time on Performing Arts Exchange. But technically, I'm the only employee that works full-time on this giant conference. We have so many other programs at South Arts. But for 1 week of all of our lives per year, we shut the office down, we bring everyone with, and everyone pitches in and gets our big annual conference done.
Even the accountant, bookkeeper, office manager.
It's really funny. We transform our roles. The roles that we play at South Arts can translate into the roles that you play at PAE in a funny way. So our chief financial officer and HR person morphs into our marketplace manager, and she has to handle and field, HR problems, basically, in a marketplace. And I answer a lot of questions, make sure people are taken care of, make sure doors are secure, and she helps, obviously, with daily receipts and that kind of thing. She helps, keep the money flowing while we're at PAE. Our office manager, Patty French, often works, I've asked her to work on our Juried Showcase. So she'll wrangle and handle talent, and she will be the voiceover, the voice of God, if you will. We call it the voice of God for our Juried Showcases. And of course, there are a lot of meetings, professional development that needs to be managed. So Nikki comes and helps us with that. So we use the whole South Arts staff to produce PAE, to make Performing Arts Exchange happen. And then in addition to that, I have, it varies, but we have at least one crew of production crew that puts together our Juried Showcases. They either, build the showcase in a ballroom, or they work with the local theater to help us produce the Juried Showcases. And that, can be anywhere from 2 to 6 people that are hired. We really just work for the 5 months or so with one person, our point person. He helps us get in touch with the artists and get everything ready. But once we're on site, you have, like I say, 4 to 6 people that help produce the Juried Showcases. Then I have 2 people that help with the other AV, with the other hospitality needs, with the food and beverage needs. They also help me do a lot of prep work throughout the year. And when we're at PAE, they just are the point people. They're Colleen. We use Q&A events. Colleen will run around and she just pops up at every food and beverage event. I'll sort of be handling other things and walk into a room, and there's Colleen directing traffic, telling, saying, here, make sure there's enough tables here and make sure that this is hot, and moving things around. And then Suzanne will be finding me so that I can do announcements. Leland, you're on in 10, you're on in 5, helping to manage whatever speakers we might have, whatever sponsors we might have, whatever AV needs to be coordinated for the other performances and the other anything that's like our plenary luncheon or a keynote speaker or an opening party, anything that's involved with that. So really 3 groups of contractors that help. So the ones with the Juried Showcases, those that help me with food and beverage and AV on site. We also have our professional development manager, and she helps to wrangle all the faculty, helps to keep on top of all the myriad of details that come with putting together 17 professional development sessions. There really are 4 sets of consultants. So I've got the Helms Briscoe, or the hotel broker is really critical, and she helps me with all the site visits. We crunch numbers, we look at room blocks together. I spend hours with this person, and it's really great. We are able to leverage this hotel room broker, our broker. She and I are huge partners, and we're able to leverage the power of this giant company, happens to be Helms Briscoe that we use, able to leverage power that we simply couldn't have by ourselves as a small to medium-sized conference. They book literally billions of dollars worth of hotel rooms every year. So that partnership is critical to making PAE successful. We also just have a lot of interaction with and planning and touching base with, again, like consortia networks and other regional arts organizations. They put on meetings at PAE. Every presenter network does a meeting at PAE. Often the regionals will come and describe their grant programs. Mid-Atlantic, for instance, will come and talk about its theater project or its dance project. So a team to help produce Juried Showcases, a team to help me on site in particular with AV and food and beverage, and then a point person manager for professional development. You can do it different ways. Different regionals have different versions of this. You don't have to do it that way, but some of that's inherited, some of that is just what made sense when there was transition between directors. They added on some help, and they stayed, which is great for me. I often feel that if I'm doing my job correctly, that I can stay calm at the center. I try. I don't know that I achieve it, but I try to stay calm at the center and allow the many, many people who help make this conference happen, to allow them to just do it. Like I was saying, the different presenter networks each hold meetings here. The regional arts organizations hold meetings here, and they all know what they're doing. So they just come together, as long as I can provide the space and make sure that the logistics are clear, make sure that the times are clear. All we have to do is provide the space, and the business gets done. The meetings happen, the networking happens, the synergy and the excitement comes together. My job and Ethan's job is just to provide that platform and, make it smooth for people to just walk in and start making art. I think the regionals that are supporting conferences or that are tasked with supporting conferences have struggled through the economic downturn with how to make it work. We have to really streamline ourselves. We have to figure out how to help artists make a conference work for them, how to help agents make a conference work for them. And we also had to figure out how to survive ourselves. National Endowment for the Arts supports us so much, but there's not as much just monetary, financial support as one would think to just have the conference, to pay for the conference. So it truly has taken a dialogue and trial and error and thoughtful strategy. We had a task force process about 3 or 4 years ago that really helped us come to understand what's vital and what's critical in the conference and what can be let go of because it's draining resources and time. We had to figure out and streamline Performing Arts Exchange to make it viable and financially feasible for South Arts. I believe that we've done that, but we have to always keep our eye on that. And we always have to keep our eye on finding ways, again, to make it a place where business gets done. And that's our tagline, but we actually really mean that. Like, the last thing on earth I want is a small shop artist or a small shop agency to lose a dime. You know, what we want are agents and artists to come to South Arts, and presenters for that matter too, small presenters, to come to South Arts and be absolutely fruitful and productive and have their time be valuable. I do spend some time talking artists out of coming to PAE. When I started this job, I would try to talk people into coming, and now I try to just give them a real picture and ask them, if you're going to invest resources, please plan to invest for 3 years. Please make sure that you participate in the New Colleagues program. Please make sure that you call some of these seasoned veterans and have a chat with them. Because I don't, I'm the director of a conference. I'm not an expert in presenting and touring. And I want to make sure that the artists understand how to use this tool most effectively. It's really important that an artist understands that. And it's been good. We as South Arts have been able to develop some programs, fine-tune our own New Colleagues programs. We launched our Launchpad program this year, which really was pulling together several different pieces of a program and making a coherent program. We have a cohort now of new colleagues that are presenters. We were able to get them all together on a webinar and explain how to use Performing Arts Exchange to their best ability. We were able to connect them with mentors before Performing Arts Exchange, make sure that they met their mentors at Performing Arts Exchange, and have those mentors really coach them throughout the program. We made sure that they participated in our Presenting 101 professional development pre-conference. We're able these days to be more strategic in helping people use Performing Arts Exchange as a tool. That's really critical. Folks often, want to know what I do. I meet people on planes or on a train, and I start telling them, and artists, oh, that's so cool. Can I come? I want to get involved. And I say, absolutely, you can come, but let's make this a tool that you can use. Let me tell you what to expect. Let's make sure you understand that. Are you a touring artist? You have to be a touring artist to have Performing Arts Exchange work for you. Just simple, basic things. We want to continue, and I would like to see us continue our capacity to make this program work for those who engage in it. And I'd really like to say that it's just an enormous investment, in particular on the parts of the agents and the artists. The buying of the booths is the biggest piece of sort of piecing together the financials. And And I am always aware of that. I'm crucially aware of what the investment is.
What is your ballpark average investment in one conference? She said between 2,500 to 5,000.
Right. And that plays out. Between 2,500 to 5,000 is not something that anyone can play. That's not an amount of money that anyone can play with. You must have a strategy. You must be ready. There's nothing more disappointing than coming to a conference, signing up late, getting a booth in the corner, expecting people to drop by. None of those things are reasonable expectations. So we try, Ethan and I and all of South, we really try to manage folks' expectations. And again, all I want is to give them an understanding of how to use this conference as a tool. That's what it is. It's a tool. And you really can use it as a tool if you understand it. So those are important, to me, those are important pieces. Going forward, we're looking at using fewer cities or returning to venues. I believe that will really help streamline my energy and give me more energy and bandwidth for developing content. And a lot of my job now is spent working with new vendors, sourcing new places to go, and we know that we can hone in better on venues that are the right financial profile, that are a fit for us, that are easy to work with, and also financially good for us. And I'm really looking forward. We're working on, we're working on going to fewer cities and just having a way to make the conferences become smoother. All the logistics become smoother.
What was the path that led to you becoming a conference manager, director?
Sure. I think this is a great question. It's funny because I didn't, come out as a little kid and say, I want to be an event planner. And it's hard for me to imagine that anyone, honestly, would come out and say, I just can't wait to be an event planner, because there's so many details and there's so much to it, and it's so public. There's so much that you can fail at. And when you're really doing your job well, not a lot you don't hear a lot about it. When you're doing your job poorly, wow, So it was a long road, but it turned out that everything I did growing up, even as a kid, my young jobs, helped me be prepared for this. First of all, I am an artist myself. So I, as a kid, did dancing and musical theater and singing, and I went to conservatory for 2 years for acting, for straight acting. I didn't think I was a good enough singer at the time to do any musical theater, so I actually ended up in this straight acting conservatory. And I finally found that I love music, and so it took me a long time to even figure out what I loved in art. But ultimately, I ended up, I'm a big band singer, and I sing for a community big band, and I also have a small band that is does the same kind of music but no brass. And I love it. And it took me a really long time in just my personal life to figure out that I would be happy I didn't personally have to make a living being an artist as long as I get to do my art. I salsa dance and I sing and I love it, and it makes me happy. But growing up, my jobs were working in restaurants. My very first job, I was 14 years old, and I worked at Subway by myself. At that time, they would let kids work in Subways. So I worked at Subways, and I learned food service, and I worked for this catering company, and they were crazy, and we would run around and do these huge shows outside of I'm from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and we'd do furniture market every year. So you'd run in and you'd have to learn how to feed 350 people. You'd have to get plates out to 350 people in 15 minutes. And so I know bartending. I waited tables. I was a grill cook. I was an expediter. I've cleaned bathrooms in restaurants. I did a lot of restaurants from until I was in my early 20s. And then I worked as an administrative assistant in an investment bank, and I learned a lot about databases doing that. I didn't want to be an administrative assistant either, but I wanted to have a good job. I wanted to have some steady work. And I ended up learning a lot about databases. I just had to I had to answer 23 phone lines, and I had to do 1,000 expenses, and I had to crunch data. And over time, I didn't realize at the time, but I was becoming an expert in just how data works within softwares, and a database manager. And then I moved from there into being a grants administrator, and that was more along the lines of who I really am, making a difference in the world. It was still in the bank, but it was in the part of the bank that gives money. So I became, over time, a grant maker, not a grant seeker, but a grant maker, and I learned the art, and it really is an art, of philanthropy and giving. And there's quite a lot to it, really. You want to do it in a thoughtful way. But through all this, I never really got to work in the arts, even though I was an artist myself. Ultimately, I became a grants management consultant. I moved to Atlanta and became a grants management consultant and helped people figure out what software they were going to use, what grant tracking software they were going to use. And after that, I became a program officer in a social justice foundation. So from being a grants administrator into more of a real grant maker and helping to decide where the grants went, and my own passion for social justice, I was able to express that through being a program director at a social justice foundation. And I loved all of that, but I still wasn't really making any money by doing art, nor was I working in the arts. And I actually got laid off and was really looking for work for a long time and a little nervous. And a friend actually was on the board at South Arts and recommended me, in the mix when they needed a program director to run PAE. And it turns out what you need to be a good program or director of a conference is you need to understand how to hustle. And waiting tables is the best training that there is for knowing how to hustle. You need to understand food and beverage. You must understand databases. And when you think, so databases are important because registration systems are all based on databases. You must understand budgeting. You must understand customer service. You must understand communications. All of these things I had done in bits and pieces since I was 14 years old, and it really surprised me. And I wasn't even sure that I had all the skills, but it turned out in the first year that I had really had all the skills I needed. And those that I didn't have, I learned. Understanding how to work with a general services contractor. What is a booth? What does pipe and drape mean? What is drayage? Like, these things I learned and had some, really good help. The contractors, our Helms Briscoe consultant, the person who helps us broker our hotel rooms, she really taught me my job when it came to the hotel block. Suzanne and Colleen, the wonderful women that help with the food and beverage and the AV, they taught me how, the parts that I didn't know, they really helped me through. And it was like this incredible partnership with these contractors that helped me figure out how to do what I didn't know how to do. And then the other pieces I had from, 20 years of all of these different types of jobs. And then the most important piece was, like I said, that I was a performing artist. I absolutely have a passion, and I didn't know that this kind of conference existed. I mean, had I known as a kid that there was such a thing as a conference that supports the industry of performing arts conferences, I might have done something different. No regrets. I think it's good. I'm an artist and a business person. But it was just news to me that this type of conference even exists. And in fact, that is why we're doing this interview. And I'm so pleased about that. I want, young folks to know, hey, this is out there. But having the passion and the love for art, it gets me through the challenging times in this role. It makes me so grateful. I feel so incredibly grateful when we get to conference and we're running around and we're hair on fire, and then there's a moment when the lights come down in the Juried Showcase and some amazing artist comes out, like Lightwire Theater, that just, without even words, just with music and with the artistry of technology, moves you to tears, moves me to tears. Just so grateful that all I have to do, like I said, is provide a platform. And artists, incredibly amazing artists, come together at PAE, share themselves, and with any luck, are presented somewhere along the East Coast. Ethan and I have a mantra, and it's still, I wrote it like 3 years ago on a big whiteboard in my office, and my goal is, it kind of keeps me going, great art, my goal is 800 satisfied customers, great art to the East Coast and beyond. That's all I really want. You can't make everybody happy, but you can have satisfied customers, and you can have incredibly beautiful art out to the world, to the East Coast, and we facilitate that. And it's an honor, it's a privilege to help the connections be made so that art can be in theaters all over the East Coast any given night of the week. Some connection, some conversation that was made at PAE helped to support some beautiful, controversial, evocative, innovative piece of art to happen. It's moving to me.